Hey guys, what's cracking? Godsman here, coming at you with another V-Clan collection reveal. Now, we've got a few of them today. I've waited a couple days so we can start to rack up some reveals, and yeah, now we've got a total of 6 new cards to talk about. And we're starting off with kind of a doozy. So, Gold Paladin with the boy, Conviction Dragon Chrome Jailer Dragon. Now, I'm pretty hype about this because ever since Spectral Duke came to be, I was actually asking for Chrome Jailer to come as well because, of course, it's the other sort of Ren Gold Paladin, like X Shadow Paladin type unit for golds, and so yeah, this guy's classic and he fits the aesthetic because, of course, I'm Shadows main at heart, but I like all Paladins, so just having like my Shadows and golds was like a dream come true. So I want a Chrome Jailer. Now, as to whether or not he's going to live to the hype, let's look to his effect to find the answer to that. First effect. Act on Van once per turn. Cost. Counterblast 1 and discard a Conviction Dragon Chrome Jailer Dragon from your hand. Yes, that is Persona Blast. Look at the top card of your deck, equal to the number of your open rear circles. Choose any number of unit cards from among them, call them to rear, and shuffle your deck. Now the second skill. Auto on Van. When this unit attacks, if all of your rear circles have units, cost Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1, and until end of that battle, this unit gets 10k power in a crit, and if your damage zone has 4 or more cards, drive +1 as well. So, okay, let me say straight up that this is a lot like old Chrome Jailer, because as we know from old Chrome Jailer, it would have the ability to get 10k in a crit. It was sort of like the PBD/PBO mirror but for golds, because again, it was Ren back in season 2. But it also had an ability to look at top 4 and call a couple cards to the field. So this is both of those effects, but they're stronger, right? You know, you limit break to get the most out of the second effect, because now you can tack a drive onto it, but you need all of your rear circles to have units, which is very different from old Chrome Jailer, because old Chrome Jailer got 10k to crit by retiring 2 units. So now we've sort of converted to more of a gold paladin kind of side of things, and this is definitely expressed with the elephant in the room being the mother effing Persona Blast. Now, this Persona Blast, yeah, it's kind of hype that we have Persona Blast again, but I'm just gonna say straight up that this card, for all that like it could do, it's a bit overcosted and underwhelming, because when we look at the Persona Blast, yeah, okay, cool, you can flood your field essentially, especially if you're coming back from a field wipe, that could be cool. But let's look at the implications of a Persona Blast in V. In V, you want to keep some grade 3s in hand for writing, that way you can get more markers. By Persona Blasting, you're denying yourself an Excel next turn. So that's a little bit oof. And on top of that, both this effect and the second effect have a counterblast to them. And this second one has a Soul Blast, so the Soul Blast is easy to negotiate because of cards like Aglavale and whatnot. But still, yeah, it's kind of expensive, and it's a little bit selfish in how it does its like own effects, because it demands that your field be full, and sure, okay, it can field flood, but unless you intend to call the triggers there, you're gonna only be getting like a few calls probably. So, whatever, right? You know, you'll still plus from it by using the Persona Blast, so it's a fair cost for a fair effect. Chrome Jailer's a little bit hard to like digest actually, because just being a paladin guy myself, you know, there's a lot of ways you can like build golds, right? You have Gurgit, Ezel, Duke, so on and so forth, Aggravate being another one, but this doesn't seem to splash in with any of them. As its own deck, it feels a little like bleh, right? It feels like a mixture of Aggravate and Duke a little bit, but like it's almost like the worst of both worlds, right? Because it doesn't have the multi-attack of either. So when you look at it from that angle, it's like, yeah, it's a standalone unit, it's not that great. And you're like, aha, but Godsman, you can splash it in. Because again, to get the most out of this unit, you have to get a Persona Blast. Now in some decks that'd be pretty easy, but in Gold Paladins, a deck which is preoccupied with Superior Calling to the field rather than selectively adding cards from deck to hand, this is hard. Sure, Gorbaduke the grade 3 searcher can get it off top 5, but then that's about it, right? Other than that, if you get a Chrome Jailer from the deck, you're probably placing it to the field, not to the hand, which is sad days. So, yeah, it's not that splashable, and as a standalone unit, it's not that great. So, overall, yeah, he's kind of underwhelming with his effects, not gonna lie. Like, sure, he's kind of unique, and he's very Gold Paladin-esque. Like, I will say this embodies the spirit of Gold Paladin, but, you know, it's not that great overall. I think this is more of just, like, a casual card, and, you know, it hits nostalgia well, but it's casual. The one thing about Chrome Jailer that is God tier, though, look at this artwork. Oh, he's T-posing to assert his dominance. The heavens are behind him. He's grabbing onto the chains and the lighting of it all. An amazing artwork. But I guess as some of us may know, it is oftentimes the fate of the cards with godliest art to have the crappiest of effects. He's not distinctly crappy, but I don't see much of a place for him right now. Who knows? Maybe in the future, if we enter more of a control format, like Assault Rider keeps on telling me is going to somehow happen, then maybe he'll be better. But as things stand, Chrome Jailer, kind of an awkward position, just a little bit underwhelming. But hey, I love that he's back though. You know, I still love it. As a Shadows Golds player, I love this a lot. Alright, moving on to the next reveals. And we're back. Okay, Spikes is up next, and we've got just a grade 1 today for Spikes, which is Reckless Express. So, not wasting any time with like any forewarnings or just stories, let's just get into the effect. Auto, when this unit is placed on Van Circle, you may pay Soul Blast 1 for this ability's cost. Spicy. When this unit is placed on Van or Rear, cost Counterblast 1. Look at the top 7 cards of the deck, choose up to 1 normal unit from among them, call it as rest, and shuffle your deck. Second effect, this may be familiar, at the beginning of your main phase, put this unit to your soul, search your deck for up to 1 Reckless Express, call it to Rear Circle, and shuffle your deck. Alright, so Reckless Express is a pretty simple unit, not gonna lie, like pretty supportive, grade 1, you know, there's not a lot to really think about when it comes to Reckless Express, like, as its own solitary card, but as anyone who plays Spikes will probably tell you, this deck, especially in Premium, gets rather complicated, because the amount of combo ability and creative freedom within that deck is just through the roof, like arguably the highest ceiling in all of Vanguard in terms of like customizability and like combo potential. Again, you know, maybe Pale Moon can do something that's like more combo like at the max, but I still think it's probably Spikes. Anyway, that's getting beside the point. So Reckless Express, is he good or not for the deck? I think it's debatable, because with Reckless Express, he is like a cool advantage engine. You know, CB1 to get a card, albeit it's indisposed at the moment. You know, it's a fair effect, because yeah, a +1 in Spikes can be pretty. If this didn't call his rest, we could have had problems on our hands, because then we would have had like a punting, I think it's like a punting cannon or whatever it was, yeah, like that could CB1 Soul Blast 1 to like peep a certain amount of cards on the top of the deck and then call a card. Yeah, you might have had that kind of situation. Like, I'm not saying that card's busted or not, but it's pretty cool in decks like Hellhard 8, right? So this isn't really a Hellhard enabler, but it does give you like easy advantage, and as a Van Circle effect, it's free. Spikes don't really have a lot of Van Circle effects. As a matter of fact, I was looking at the catalog pretty recently, and they have hardly anything that's worthwhile as a grade 1 Van. So this is really cool, just as a nice early +1. But afterwards, you know, it's debatable. I think if you're playing a mid-roll Spikes that wants to like attrition for a couple turns before it gets like the beatdown rush kill turn, this could be considerable. The second effect, you know, being the Wonder Boy effect. The Wonder Boy effect is going to be as good as it always was, right? Like, if this doesn't leave the field, then boom, you know, free soul and you get the on-play skill again. Yeah, the Wonder Boy effect is always wonderful, pun intended. And on a Reckless Express, you know, it makes a little difference, right? It's still great. So overall, I'd say he's decent, you know, like he can definitely search you out the pieces you want. There's combo ability with things like Rona, Davy, Lucifer. You can hit all sorts of stuff with this. So it can just lead into further advantage gaining. If you're missing out on a couple pieces to get your like aggression going, this can just like kickstart your engine a bit. So in that way, yeah, it's pretty cool. But the fact that it calls rest is the thing that really keeps this card in check. That and the counterblast, like those two elements really keeps this card in check and makes it pretty debatable. But still, I like Reckless Express. I think I get the idea what they were going with this, and being a player that's doesn't like to be greedy too often, is more like conservative in his plays, I think I might opt for this, personally speaking. But again, you know, to each their own, right? All right, now the next reveal. And introducing the new Bermuda Triangle units. Yes, we've actually got all three, and they're all duos, thus repeating the trend that I think we now have all come to realize, which is that if the two or more cards are for the same subclan as a support card, then they're just all going to get revealed at the same time. They've done it with Regalias, they've done it with Amon, and now they're going to do it with duos. But let's go over these duos. Are they good or are they not? Spoiler alert, they're pretty cool. So let's scroll down a bit. It's funny how it went down a little bit. And let's start with the grade 1. So we've got a duo Pretty Horn Ural. So Ural has 2 skills. First skill is when it's placed on the Van circle specifically, you search for 1 normal unit, bind it, and shuffle. The second skill is Auto. When it's placed on rear from the hand, you choose 1 normal unit from the drop zone and bot deck it. If you have a card with the same name as the bot deck unit in your bind zone, you can Soul Blast 1 to draw, making it a potential +1. Now, Ural is pretty nice, but before I talk more about her, let me read the grade 2 and the grade 3. Then I'll go over them collectively as a package. Duo Mini Heart Roan is the grade 2. So Mini Heart's first effect is an auto on the rear that when it swings, it gets 3k for each unit in your bind zone. Pretty cool. Now, the second effect is an act on mana rear, which is that if you have a Vanguard with Duo in its card name, you Soul Blast 1 to choose a card in your bind zone, search a card from your deck with the same name as that targeted card in the bind zone, add it to the hand and shuffle. Now, on to the grade 3, which we've actually been knowing about for a bit, as this is a cover card. Yeah, good old Re. Actually, you know, gotta say, pretty cool effect. I like Reed's effect. You know, pretty nice. One of the better ones for Bermuda Triangle. I don't know, maybe it's because it just doesn't feel like as illegal. I don't know. Anyway, that aside, Duo Temptation Re has 2 effects. The first one is act on Van once per turn, you bind a rear to draw a card. Nice break even. Now the second effect is an auto on rear. This one's a bit of a doozy of effect. Hang in there with me. So auto on rear once per turn. At the end of the battle where this unit attacks, you counterblast 1 and pitch 1 from hand to stand it with drive -1. Now you choose up to 1 card from your bind zone with the same card name as the card discarded for this cost. That's very specific. And call it to rear circle. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you gain a force marker and put it on the Vanguard circle. Okay, so these cards do a lot, and some people have been having mixed feelings, but there's like some red flags with it. Okay, so immediately we see that with all 3 of these duos, the duo playstyle in V has become a bind zone mechanic, but not just any binding mechanic a la Prism. It's become a binding mechanic where you care very particularly about what cards you have in your bind zone, because then you get to do something with other copies of said cards in the bind zone, which I suppose thematically makes sense because, you know, the name of them is duos, so you have a duality going on. You have one in bind and one out of bind. They work as a duo. Now, I guess going down the list, Ural as a grade 1 is pretty cool. Sure, the first effect is only Van only, but if you get it off, then that's really nice. You know, you get a lot of targets going with it. It's way too early for me to tell what exactly your target would be. I'm not a Bermuda main or expert. As a matter of fact, this clan is one of the ones I avoid like the plague. But I do have a fair bit of experience with a couple Bermuda variants by way of playing against people who actually play the deck often. So yeah, I don't know what you would search at this, but the fact that it's just anything you want is supremely versatile, so that's pretty cool. It's very reminiscent of what the Sea Strolling Banshee B retrain ended up being, where if you place it on like Van, you got to just dump anything from deck to the drop zone. That was very good. The second effect is really specific too, and I think that's a critique for the duos, in my opinion, is the fact that to get like the most out of their effects, you have to very specifically do like copies of cards that are also present in the bind zone. It really reins it in. It does make it kind of a weak deck in the sense that if you're just seeing a lot of like one-ofs or cards that you don't have extra copies of, you can be screwed. But if you do see extra copies and you play wisely, then yeah, these effects are pretty strong. Now, before I go further with Roan and Reach, actually no, never mind. Let me go through them. Yeah, so with Roan, getting 3k for each card in the bind zone is actually really cool because you can get a few binds going potentially, and Roan being able to selectively get a card. This is low-key so great because this means it combos very distinctly with Reet, because for Reet's effect to pitch a card from the hand, you have to, the card that you pitch, you need to have one in the bind zone in order for that one in the bind zone to be called to rear. So with this, you've essentially CB'd one in order to assure the 5th attack in that turn, because this is a 5 attack deck if you just use Reet's effect to its fullest. So yeah, Roan really sets that up. Albeit to use both those effects, you have counterblasted 2, but I do recognize I think there's a couple of countercharge options in Bermuda Triangle. I'm not sure how good or not they are, but this may not be a deal breaker necessarily. And as for Reet herself, Reet is pretty cool. Like, she's not busted or anything. She's actually somewhat of a basic unit. In terms of what like her net effect is, which is just restanding Vanguard, get an extra rear attack, and you can also potentially get a force. But where the nuance is in the fact that she sort of combines like the elements of Prism while also being sort of like the new grade 3 Steam Maiden that we got last set. It's all there, right? You bind a rear, which sets up your bind zones. You don't lose any card advantage for it though. And then you're also able to get a multi-attack on like the rear circle. But then it starts feeling a little bit Dragonic Overlordy because you can also stand the Vanguard. And because you're discarding one, but then you're getting a 3rd drive check that turn, it's essentially a break even, although interestingly enough, if you're able to in mid battle find a way to move a rear that has attacked like into like another zone and clear out that zone, then you have +1, because calling that unit from bind to an open circle is a plus, holistically speaking. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And it's just the fact that you can get a force with it, and admittedly it's going to be a force one. Bermuda is not really like against force ones. Force ones are pretty cool. This is a pressuring unit. This has the meat to it. Now I'll address the elephant in the room, which is Prism. Does this make Prism a lot better? I would say not really. So the thing about Prism is, yes, these have bind zone synergy, and so does Prism. But if you ask me, I think these benefit tremendously from there being Prism cards, in particular the grade 4 Nectaria, in order to give this deck more consistency and more options for binding. But the opposite is not necessarily true, because you see, sure, you have things like Ural, which could in theory give you like an extra card. That's a cool Soul Blast, and Ural's probably the best one for this deck. And then this one can also like be cool, but the problem is that because the grade 2 specifies a duo in its card name, it's only going to be good as a ride for the most part. That's about it. So really, yeah, they got Ural, and that's the good card for them. Reet can be an alternative ride target, but whether or not they do it is a little bit debatable, because you probably still want to go for Vert in most cases, because Vert, yes, Vert is also 5 attacks, but with Vert you do get like the extra drive, and the cards that you call from the bind zone, they're pretty devastating. But, this can combo with Vert. So you may, in fact, see, like, a duo Prism mix. It won't really raise the ceiling of the deck, though. I don't think it raises the ceiling of the deck. It just makes the deck have a fallback option that's consistent within itself, because it becomes sort of like an engine with these duos. So you can say that, yes, this has improved Prism, but it hasn't improved it to the point where it's a harder to beat deck for the most part. It just feels like Prism now has like more options available. But yeah, the main interaction is just the fact that like you can use like the grade 1 and the grade 2 Prism in order to get more binds going. That's pretty cool. Or just call them from the bind zone, because again, when they're called from the bind zone, they get effects that are pretty sweet. Yeah, so overall, these cards are pretty cool, you know? They're definitely pretty cool. I don't think they're busted, though, and there have been some complaints that's like, oh my god, Bermuda, Bermuda and busted support, what? Never heard of it. Yeah, I get it. Deck is meta for a long time. It always has favoritism because waifu tax, and I actually think it's my most hated clan, too. But I will say that Bushy handled this with some tact this time, and I'm going to give him a pass. I think this one's actually pretty fine. You know, these girls do more or less what they're supposed to. They feel like they're their own thing. As a matter of fact, if they decide to hit Prism further, which might be ludicrous because I don't think that deck's busted, although it is showing up a lot in Springfest, so it may need another tap on the rest. But if it does so, then yeah, duos can sort of take its place, and duos, for being like the archetype that it was like back in the day, I think they did a pretty good job with it. I want to see more duos in the next set, and that's pretty weird considering that I don't like Bermuda at all. So I guess that says something in and of itself, right? But these are probably going to be the most controversial cards of tonight's video. Anyway, that aside, we got one more reveal, and oh boy, I think we're saving the best for last. Oh yeah, let's get over there. And we're back one last time for the night. The last reveal that we're going to be going over is Shadow Paladin. Yeah, shadows. Again, just like with Chrome Jailer, we're back in my element, boy. Now, we didn't get Revengers. Very sad days. I was trying to hold the faith, but as we talked about with duos, you know, there's a pattern here. If your archetype is going to get support, it's going to get it all at once this set. We only got Drag Ruler, so that's probably all we're getting, unfortunately. But hey, you know what? That's fine, because Shadow's decks have admittedly been kind of left out for a little bit on account of Revengers just getting this influx of support the past like 2 or 3 sets. So this is cool. What do we got though? Well, I'm not sure how many of you guys knew this guy existed, but yeah, he was a limit break card. So here's Origin Made Ildona. So Ildona has 3 effects, and they're really nice. The first one is continuous from the deck and the drop to give this card -2 grade, so grade 1. Second effect is an act from the hand. The spice continues. If your Vanguard is grade 1, not grade 1 or greater or less, just grade 1. So 1 turn of this. Cost, discard this card from your hand to reveal the top 10 cards of your deck. If 2 or more grade 1 cards were revealed, choose up to 1 revealed grade 2 or greater card from among them, put it in your hand and shuffle your deck. The third effect is an auto unban or rear. When this unit attacks, you counterblast 1 and retire 2 rear guards to draw 2 cards. Now it says 2 other rear guards, so you can't retire this. I'm not sure why you want to though. If this unit is on Van Circle, then it gets 5k power until end of that battle for each grade 1 in your drop. So yeah, very obviously, Ildona is meant to support like Claret and Luard, and why wouldn't it? Because Ildona, lore-wise, was like supposed to be some strict-ass teacher of Luard, like really threw him to the ringer. And you know, that's just how Shadow Paladins be, right? You know, like harsh training because these guys are like edgy and strong and all that jazz. So yeah, you know, he trained Luard, and freaking he deserves to be able to support the Luard playstyle in some way. That said, the extent to which he supports the Luard is somewhat limited in V, because for Drag Driver is not going to interact with this that well, because sure, it can be called, and that's sweet, you know, that is sweet. But from turn 4 onwards, when you're putting crits on your grade 1s, this is not going to qualify, because it's only from the deck and the drop that's treated as a grade 1. So the moment that it's on the field, it's a grade 3 again. That said, in the early game, this second effect is really cool, because then there's so much consistency with it. Because let me just say, there's something about Shadow's decks that needs to be explained, and particularly with regards to Claret and Luard, which are the 2 decks this thing supports. Your grade 3 is not that searchable. It's not, right? If you're not running the Superior Ride Engine, and even if you are running the Superior Ride Engine, that's just to get like a PPD. Your ability to get Luard, like Dragheart, is not guaranteed. Anyone who's played Luard will tell you. It's really sad days when you don't get Luard, and it's not like once in a blue moon. It happens. It really does happen. Sorry, I don't know what happened there. As for Claret, it's the same basic dealio. You don't really have any like searchers for Claret outside, of course, the generic XP searcher. And sure, Espada could potentially get it off top 3, but as but I mean, that is like a top 3 search, so it's very like, it's not likely to happen in a lot of cases. Like, if it happens, great, but that's not a very wide search. This looks at top 10 for one of those grade 3s, because it adds a grade 2 or greater. So the consistency of getting your grade 3 is amazing. Hell, if you need a grade 2, because you're running a lot of grade 1s, right? If you need a grade 2, because you got greedy with your ratios, you've got the 3 and you've ridden the 1 already, but you don't have the 2, you don't have your Blaster Dark or Morian Spear or whatever the frick you're running, this literally peeps top 10 to go fetch that for you. And because, it says 2 or more grade 1s were revealed to even enable to add from deck to hand, let's just keep in mind that it benefits you to be greedy with your grade 1 ratios now. So that's great. This is a really cool effect. The third effect is pretty interesting, because what it essentially does is, for the price of a counterblast, you convert your field advantage into hand advantage, and that's great for shadows because we tend to have a lot of field advantage that came straight from the deck, not from the hand, but from the deck to the field. So it's as if you converted your already used up offensive power, because you can just swing at this after you swing with another column, for instance. You just convert that into hand size in order to keep yourself well defended and have follow-ups next turn. So yeah, that effect is really nice. The counterblast does make it hurt in Luard, again, right? In addition to that, if you're swinging this in Luard, you probably only want to be doing that on the turn 3 or something. Potentially you'll do that on the turn 3 if you just need to get some card advantage and set up a little bit more, then I can see you doing that. But outside of that, this is mainly a Claret card, and in Claret this thing's like the nuts, because Claret only really runs Claret as a grade 3. Aside from Claret's sword, there's only 2 major grade 3s that Claret would run. One is PBD for the superior ride, which I do condone, but not everyone does. The other one is Bothadin, right? Bothadin being a CB1 and retire 2 rears to call a card from your drop with the sum of the grade being equal to or less than whatever you retired, but then both of those units gets 10k. That's what the effect does. So those are the other 2 grade 3s, and as you see, one was for a superior ride engine, the other one is just a rear guard grade 3. This one can be a rear guard grade 3 too, but it nets you better advantage than Bothadin does. So you can in fact run this over Bothadin. The revival is cool, it is cool. So you could just run some of this and some of Bothadin, but this is still really nice for Claret, because you just have this on the rear, give it a force 2, and that's nice. If for whatever reason you just can't ride Claret, this is an okay thing to draw. This is an okay thing to draw because you've already been so focused on dumping grade 1s that at least it recognizes that part of the Claret engine and the Claret strategy, that it'll just get big for it. And that's all it does, right? It'll get big and then you just draw 2, but hey, it's better than nothing, right? So overall, Ildona is very versatile. It can be splashed into just about any Shadow Paladin in the deck that cares about grade 1s, but you have to negotiate your ratios more with this, because this can be treated as a grade 1, which can be pretty sweet, man. That can be pretty sweet, and that can make it that actually ironically makes it really versatile in grades 2, because then it's sort of like Morfessa, where you can use it as a grade 2 ride if you need to, but when your deck is online, it's essentially a grade 1. This thing is the same thing, but for grade 3. So I do see you running this, and definitely Claret for V, and some of the wards can probably use this. And outside of that, if there's other grade 1 centric strategies of shadows, which would just be more janky stuff, then this one can also be seen there too. So I really like this. I think Ildona has a lot of potential. We'll probably be seeing this to some capacity. So yeah, good stuff there. And with that, that's going to wrap up today's reveals. Pretty cool stuff all around. There were a couple things like Chrome Jailer, which was kind of disappointing, and then Reckless Express still needs to be seen. But then we see that with the duos, which may be scary good, and then Ildona, which is almost certainly going to be used in a Shadow Paladin variant or 2 in V, that yeah, we're seeing a rise in the power level for the most part. I still theorize that this set is of a higher ceiling than the previous 2 clan collections, but I've been called out for capping with that. But I don't know. We'll have to see at the end of the set holistically all around how strong things were. But you know, I have high hopes. I'm pretty satisfied with this set. Aside from the very spotty release schedule where we just get whatever the frick comes, and just how wild the cards that have actually come have been because we don't have hints to like anticipate them anymore. It's been pretty nice. It's been pretty nice aside from that. So yeah, if you guys like this video, if you have any comments about it, be sure to let me know down below. If there's anything I'm underestimating, overestimating, forgot to mention, yeah, just let me know in the comments section. And if you like this video and want to see more Vanguard content from me, then please do hit the subscribe button down below if you want to see more from me. And with that, take care. God bless.